Hey guys, it's Nicole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Eaton, author of the book Rock Your Soul, the Down to Earth Guide to Master Your Mind. But what I did this morning, I have been working on just honoring my energy. It's funny because sometimes we do something a year or two ago and we go through the motions of it being right for us and true for us, even if it doesn't feel quite right anymore. And so this past month has been sobering. I'm going to talk a lot about that on the next podcast with Heather Mayo next week. So make sure you're subscribed if this is your first time listening. Hi. I love you. Thank you for coming. So last month was sobering for me. I felt like a lot of the things that I've believed for a long time or things that I felt are true were really challenged last month, right? And I described this, and Heather and I were texting earlier, and I was saying, God, I feel like all of my beliefs got a little bit dismantled so I could rebuild them. And I was thinking about the process of like, how do you get through hard times? What does that look like? For me, I focus in on my self-care. I focus in on my routines. We talk a lot about routines on this podcast. If you're new, again, welcome. We're talking about routines. But today I want to talk about specifically demystifying self-care. I didn't realize self-care was so confusing for some people until I started digging a little bit deeper into people's patterns, behaviors, and intentional time with themselves. And the reality is, guys, that we do not take enough time for ourselves. I posted a reel a couple weeks ago just saying, like, if you don't have 10 to 30 minutes of your day to yourself, you need to look at your priorities. I know I have kids, so I know that there are times where the kids are little and it's very hard, but creating a structured bedtime, being consistent with that for yourself, not just them, finding time a little bit to wake up early, going and locking yourself in the bathroom for 10 minutes, like creating some sort of time in your day where you're intentional about your life. Because if you're not, there is a massive risk. There's a massive risk that you're going to get on autopilot, first of all. If you're not being intentional about your life, you are just responding to it. So there's a chance you can get on autopilot and just honestly miss it, stop enjoying it. And if you've caught yourself on autopilot, welcome. We're here to ensure that does not occur, that is not the culmination of your life, that you are taught and you can learn how to be intentional about caring for yourself. So yay, you found the right podcast if you've caught yourself on autopilot. So when we're not being intentional, that's kind of where we end up. We end up in misery. We end up resentful. If you're not taking 10 to 30 minutes out of a 24-hour day for yourself, you're going to feel really mad at a lot of people, even if you're not saying it. You're going to feel resentful towards your spouse or partner. You're going to feel resentful towards your family or friends that are demanding things of you. If you're not demanding that you care for yourself and take time for yourself, it's not going to feel good. So let's talk about just self-care in general, because I feel like over the years, self-care has become this thing where people equate it to like bubble baths and face masks. Do I love a good bubble bath? Yes. Did I just get out of a bubble bath? Absolutely. Do I take midday bubble baths while I edit things? 100%. You should try it. Um, so it is a form of self-care. Painting your nails is a form of self-care. But self-care is so much fucking deeper than that, and it makes me sad when people minimize it to aesthetics or to relaxation. Yes, we can better ourselves in a better state when we are relaxed. We actually can access our intuition even better when we're relaxed. But self-care is actually the gateway to emotional regulation and the gateway to authenticity. Because when we're really tuning into ourselves, when we're sitting for 10 minutes, when we're having space to do an activity that brings us joy, we're compounding our authenticity. We're asking ourselves who we are. And we're not just on that day to day autopilot, wake up, go to work, come home, feed the kids, take them, get them in the bathtub and go to sleep. And I've been there before. It's awful. It's not a way to live. It's not a way to live. So stepping into our truly authentic self being intentional about our lives and creating something. Because when we're intentional and we're out of survival mode, again, in survival mode, and I wrote about this in my book, survival mode, your body and your brain is looking, think prehistoric. You're looking for a doorway out, an exit, an escape, or to fight something that's entering your space that's causing you danger. That is like our brains are Neanderthal level basic. Like, our brains are basic. I probably should write a book called Our Brains Are Basic because they just freaking are. They have not evolved in the ways that our body and our technology and our environment have evolved. Yes, they've evolved, but not by much, because when we start to worry about something or we're in survival mode where we're high stress all the time, our brains go into survival mode where it's looking for an exit or to fight something. You're constantly on the edge. So, when we're intentional about self care, we get into a mode where we allow our bodies to relax. We come within and we can listen to our intuition and our soul. What do we need? What do we need? And that puts us in a creative state. That gives us a chance to think about, how could things go a little bit better for me? What's a way I could bring myself joy today? What am I really needing? And a lot of times when we're in that survival mode, we attach our needs to other things, other people. This job will fulfill me. This person will fulfill me. Um, and we rely on things externally to care for us, which is a very dangerous game because everything outside of you has the chance that it can go at any given moment. That's a very dangerous game. So when we're being intentional about self-care, a really great question to ask is, what am I needing from all of those external things? Am I needing love? Am I needing validation? Am I needing to hear certain things? That might be the key for you to just begin that process of coming within. Okay, so I'm really needing validation. How am I going to validate myself? I'm needing love. I'm needing somebody to, I love, if your love language is gifts, maybe that's like just getting yourself flowers. Maybe that's writing yourself a little love note and putting it on your mirror. Whatever that is, it's about inquiring within, coming within. That is self care. And I hate to make it so simple, but it is. It's like, what do I need right now? The second part of self care is when we come within, we also are forced to get honest with ourselves. We're not just going through the motions. It's almost easier in some regard to go through the motions because then we don't have to admit things are wrong. We don't have to admit that maybe we made choices that weren't the best. We can kind of run away from ourselves and our bullshit when we're on autopilot and incessantly busy. So self care is also about getting really honest with yourself. It means being honest, even if the truth is hard to admit. It's being clear about what you need and what you desire and who you are. And we can get lost and we evolve so much over time that it can be easy to be stuck in who we used to be. It's so funny because I've been thinking about, I have a business Instagram and uh, I gave up my personal Instagram and I made my business Instagram. And that has been confusing to some people because I don't post about my kids and my family. Like, I don't post a lot of personal stuff on my business Instagram. And people were actually kind of angry at me for this. I had people who assumed certain things about it. I've had people who have said kind of some awful things to me about me not using my Instagram as a personal Instagram. And that's such a fucking silly thing, but, where was I going with that? Oh, so anyway, I've had all this upset, I guess, about how I'm choosing to use my Instagram, which is a business account, um, and so I was like, "Okay, part of me is the people pleaser from before, and I decided to go back and reactivate an old personal account." And it's so crazy to me because I it's so crazy to me because I activated this account and I had it for maybe, I don't know, gosh, like 8 hours total. I cleaned it up a little. I kind of reset some pictures. And something about it just felt off. It was like living in a past life. It was a bunch of people who I didn't really like connect with, who I kind of forgot about, who maybe unfriended me on my other account or whatever, or I unfriended them or whatever the case might be. And it was just like this blast from a past of a person that I'm no longer. And sometimes it feels really good to no longer be that person who needs that validation, who does things a certain way, and we can get really stuck in believing that maybe we are the same from 3 years ago, or maybe we are the same from 2 years ago, when in reality, we're not. And sometimes it takes looking at that to remind us not only of the good things we were, but of the things that ways we've grown. When you're coming within and you're doing the self-care, it's important to get honest with yourself. Are you acting in a way that is authentic to yourself and to who you are? And that might take some self-discovery. And maybe some of that time you use in self-care are journal prompts to relearn yourself. That's a thing, especially if you've transitioned roles, if you've gone from living at home to, living in a college dorm, if you've gone from, being married to having kids join and being a mother, if you've gone from whatever, from city to city, whatever the case might be, anytime you change anything in your life, you might have to get to know yourself again. You might have to come within and ask yourself, like, what season do I like now? I live in South Carolina. Summers are honestly pretty freaking hot here. I love a good fall, though. Fall is favorable. Spring is fantastic. I've never really liked spring before because it's always been messy. I lived in New York for a long time. But it's just little things that's like, what am I looking for? Who am I? How do I want to reflect that? What am I afraid of? What's blocking me? This is all a form of self-care, is exploring who you are. And then the next part, which is maybe my favorite and most important part about self-care, is asking yourself, okay, so if I'm working on being authentic, and maybe my authentic is silly, and maybe my authentic is spiritual, and I'm going to be very transparent. One of the things that I've struggled with for a while is being an intuitive. I originally, when I quote unquote came out as an intuitive, somebody who has the ability to read the energy around people, um, and read it into energy, I had a lot of people who thought that was devil's work. I had a lot of people who sent me really awful messages, or who didn't want to be my friend anymore because they thought I was doing a wrong thing or didn't believe me, or whatever the case might be. And it was really, really hurtful. And so for a really long time moving to South Carolina, I didn't want to tell anybody who I was. And even some people that I hung out with regularly just didn't know. They didn't know that was part of my person. It's a really massive part of my person. Faith is a really big part of my life. Um, Being an intuitive is how I function in the world. It's who I am at the core. And so I've watered that down for a long time, even though I'm really good at it, even though it's something that's helped a lot of people and honestly saved a lot of lives. That is something that I felt almost embarrassed of. And that's like, I honestly can't believe I'm sharing that, but it has been a struggle for me to accept that part of myself, even though people think it's cool or a cool party trick. Like, it has been a struggle to be like, this is who I am. I was given this gift, which I think is not necessarily a gift. I think most people can learn to listen to their intuition in the same ways that I can. I don't think it's a special trait necessarily. I think it's just a skill set, an internal skill set we can build and learn. But my point is that at some point you have to look at all the parts of you. What parts have you been hiding, and who have you been hiding them from? What are you fearing? What is the worst thing that can happen? And I think for me, it was like being shunned, being rejected, being told that who I was weird or stupid or made up. I can't tell you how many people like just felt like that's a made up thing. So it's just like being denied as a human, and having your reality be denied as a human. Even though I know, again, this gift, this part of me, the skill set that I have, has been universally helpful. So you have to look around and ask yourself, who are you hiding from, and are they a regular part of your life? If there is someone in particular who is going to reject the authentic version of you, who you can't be yourself around, who you can't relax around, you have to ask yourself the question, if this person can't love me from all angles, are they the right person to continue to be in my life right now? Part of self care and a huge part of self care is a letting go of relationships that you've outgrown or that aren't ready for your authenticity or that can't embrace or accept your authenticity. And people's rejection of you is not typically about you. It's usually about them. It's about what they can accept in their life. It's what they struggle with in their soul. And so when you learn to accept yourself, you weed out the people who can't. It becomes a safer way to live. And it feels so good to be authentic. I know there's been relationships in my life where I felt very guarded, or I can't be myself, or I can't be silly, or I can't swear, or and it just feels so restricting. It feels like my whole body is like encaged, and it feels foreign to me because I enjoy being open. I am a vulnerable person. Love being vulnerable, and I love when people are vulnerable with me. It makes me feel seen. It makes them feel seen. It makes us feel more deeply connected. Um, so part of self care is also boundaries. Learning and looking at who you need to set boundaries with. And this could even be, emotionally draining friends. Have you ever had a friend who just complains about the same thing and keeps making the same choices? It's okay. You owe nobody your time. You don't owe anybody your time. You don't owe anybody a text back. You don't owe anybody emotional support if you're not like filled up. If you're not giving to yourself first, you don't owe anybody anything. And I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes self care is tricky and it can feel a little isolating because the more authentic you get, the more you do weed out the people who aren't meant for you. And that can feel like, oh, did I do the wrong thing? Was being myself the wrong choice? Or you might get backlash or you might get people telling you how to do it. I know I've had people who do not like that I swear, and I get messages and DMs regularly saying, "Oh, hey, Nicole, like I would share your content, but I don't like your swearing, so I can't do that. Could you stop swearing?" And what I'll say to that is, I didn't grow up in a house where swearing was bad. Our viewpoints of that bad and good are all different. They're all different. Some people love that I swear. They feel like it's a connection, a down to earth kind of thing. And some people grew up thinking it was a really bad thing and they see me as bad because of it. So our perceptions shape our reality and our perceptions shape what resonates and what doesn't. And when we start to become our authentic self, we do eliminate a lot of things that no longer resonate. But the cool part is the more authentic we get and the more we pay attention to ourselves, the more we tune into ourselves, the more we have the ability to draw in the right kind of people. I believe we are a vibrational match for things that resonate. And when we're not resonating in an authentic frequency, we're not ourselves. And when we're not ourselves, we're going to attract more people who we can't be ourselves around. So find some really good friends. I have some incredible friends. I have been blessed with the most incredible friends where I can be myself. I can be a mess if I need to be. I can be open and honest about who I am. I can be silly. I can say stupid things. No one's going to take offense to it. Um, and you have to find people like that. You have to find people like that. So some self-care requires letting go of relationships. Some self-care requires letting go of habits. Some self-care looks like looking into what no longer serves you. Really look at what brings you joy. Really look at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and if it's draining you or adding to your life. It matters. So, self care is really the process of alignment and authenticity. It's creating time and space to come back in and listen and just exploring what feels good and what doesn't. I think sometimes we're so scared to look at things that aren't working, We're so scared because we don't want to make a decision and it feels really big. But when we do self care, we're like, okay, so what do I need? What does this feel like? What is my heart saying? What is my heart needing? Um, what do I need to tell myself? If I need love or validation, what where can I validate myself? What actions can I put into place where instead of looking in the mirror every morning and cursing my thighs, that I'm just appreciating my body for all the things it does for me every single day without me asking it to? What would that look like if we reset the relationship with who we are, what we do each day in an intentional way? Another thing I mentioned was that it's also a gateway of emotional regulation. Self care, I like to use the analogy of if a cup of water on the table is completely full, any water you pour in, any thing you pour in on top is going to spill over. So, when we're talking emotional regulation, if you're somebody who is depressed or anxious or just has high levels of stress, you have to ask yourself, like, how am I emptying out that water so that every little thing doesn't feel like it's spilling over? Am I working out? Am I meditating? Am I journaling? Am I connecting with friends? Connection is the most underrated self-care. Finding good people. I yeah, finding the right people for you. Finding people who are just eternal cheerleaders and just cheer you on. But being able to recognize that you're getting stressed out, like, that's what tuning in really does. It's saying, "Okay, I need to relax. Why do I need to relax?" Because when I don't relax, that when my kids are asking me for something while I'm trying to make dinner, that I snap at them. And then I become a mom that I don't wanna be, and I feel guilty, and I feel bad. We're trying to prevent that whole idea. That's what self-care is about as well. We're trying to prevent that you're not snapping at your kids, that you're not yelling at your husband, that you're not isolating for long periods of time, like, whatever that is that you do when your cup is overflowing in a negative way, when you have more on your plate than you can deal with, that's what we're trying to prevent. So by coming in, you can even just scan your body and say, "Where on my body am I holding tension?" Well, I always hold it in my, upper body, in my neck and shoulders. That's where I hold my tension. But you might even scan your energetic body and say, where around me feels tense? I was on the phone with a client yesterday and I was saying to her, man, your heart feels heavy to me. Like, the energy feels really heavy around your heart. Let's clear that out. And she was like, I'm very anxious today. We cleared that out and she felt more in her power. Self care is where we switch over from, again, reacting to creating. This is where we start to balance our energy. This is also like meditation and working out is a way of saying, I love you, self. It's a form of letting your body know that it's important too. And that matters. That feels so good when we are able to do that. So it's important to come back in and just see what you're needing. Maybe it is a massage. Maybe it is a blowout. Maybe it is you getting your nails done. Maybe it is a facial. Whatever it is, that's totally fine. But you just have to practice going within because that's going to keep you sane. That's going to direct you to the activities and habits that will help you balance it so life doesn't feel so stressful all the time. That will keep your cup from being so full that any little tiny thing spills over. Because I'm telling you, if you're yelling at your kids, it is not about them. It's about what else in your life you're not handling. What else in your life where else in your life your emotions have a place to go. If you're yelling at your kids, like, that's a sign that you need to step back, take time for yourself, and take care of yourself. So, as you're coming back inward and just listening to what do I need? Where am I holding energy? Doing those body scans, asking those questions, getting to know yourself, setting boundaries. It may look different every day. Self care may look different every single day. Some days I like to journal. If I'm having a stressful morning, I'll like to write that out and just get it out of my system. Some days I like to manifest in the morning. Some days I like to meditate. Some days I like to work out. It may look different, and I would encourage you to flow with whatever shows up, whatever feels like self care. Like maybe it's just taking a long hot shower. We can really customize self care to what we're needing, but we have to start the process of at least listening to what we're needing. And we have to give ourselves permission. I think some people really like structure, which is fine. But sometimes when you're forcing self care, it's not doing the job it was set out to do. I know some people who like got hooked on meditation and then forced it. There have been times in my spiritual journey where I don't meditate. There are times in my spiritual journey where I don't spend any time with the universe or God or in that state. And there's times where I need to come back to it and I feel better when I do it. So it's really about pairing the need with the correct thing. And you might not know, you might need to play around. Maybe it's making art or drawing on the sidewalk with your kids. Maybe it's just listening to good music and dancing around the house. Whatever self care looks like, it may change day to day, and we allow that and flow with that and really pay attention to, is this doing the job it's set out to do, which is allowing you to step into whatever authentically brings you joy, whatever's true to you, and providing a way to get some of that water out of that cup. so that when things spill over, when shit goes wrong, that we don't have that explosive response. I remember, I'm going to totally call my dad out here, but I remember when I was young, my dad was super stressed out. He worked a lot of jobs and he was just stressed out a lot of the time. And so, like, if one small thing would happen, he would really get really mad really fast. It was never like, "Oh, this is an inconvenience. How do I want to handle it?" It was more like, um, just an immediate reaction. So I thought for a long time that that was normal, that if anything went wrong, that that was a normal response, and it took me a long time to recognize that, okay, so he had too much water in his cup, and he really needed to spend some time taking care of that water, taking care of those emotions so that there was room for more. So I hope you get intentional about the self care. Really look at how you're speaking to yourself. Really look at how you're speaking about your day to yourself. Your internal narrative will drive your happiness, will drive your authenticity, will drive your ability to set boundaries with people. If you're seeking and you're looking for somebody to say certain things, or you want that approval from your boss, or that validation from your coworkers, or you want, that pride moment from your dad or your mom, ask yourself, how can I give that to me? How can I love myself? How can I be proud of myself? Maybe I make a list of things I'm proud of. Maybe that's my self care for tonight. Maybe that's 10 minutes out of my day where I'm just thinking about all the ways I'm proud of myself. Man, I really could have given up. I could have given up and just went into hiding and just never really did anything. I could have done that. Maybe you just look at the moments that you're super lovable. It's up to you to rewrite your story. And this is like just a little snippet on the end. I really wanted to do a whole podcast on victimhood, but I strongly believe we're going through a time period right now where we're able to identify why we are the way we are. Okay. So, you're like this because your dad was absent, or you're like that because your mom was incarcerated, or you're like this because you endured abuse in your childhood. And I love that for you. I love self awareness. Self awareness is cool. But the cooler part is knowing what to do with it, knowing how to care for ourselves, knowing how to emotionally regulate ourselves. Our ability to recognize our traumas is vital, but our ability to say, this happened, I respond in this way because of it, or I shut myself down, or I have commitment stuff, or I whatever. And here's how I'm going to work with that. Here's how I'm going to break that generational curse. Here's how I'm going to change that so that I'm not taking that out on my friends or family, or being a victim to my life and my past circumstances. My favorite quote, and I wrote this in my book, is Jen Sincero from the book You Are a Badass. And it's not your fault if you're fucked up. It's your fault if you stay fucked up. So I love the age we're in, where we're in the self-awareness, and here's what happened and here's why. I love that we have all this knowledge, but don't become a victim to who you are based on what happened to you. Who do you want to be? How do you need to take care of yourself? What stories do you need to rewrite? How do we do the work so that you gain your power back? Because if you stay in that victim mode, you're not going to get any further. How do we take your power back? How do we let you be the powerful person in the story? How do we rewrite that narrative? That is vital for you to feel empowered in your life, because you get to. It doesn't fucking matter what happened. From here on out, you get to design your future, and you get to create something special, and you get to take care of yourself, and you get to love yourself in the ways that maybe other people couldn't. And that is your power. So I hope you guys carve out some self-care time. I hope you reprioritize yourself. Make time for you. Cancel plans if you need to. That's a form of self-care as well. But when we create self-care, we also get in touch with our soul. We hear our intuition better. And that's what really leads us to live more, joyously throughout the day. So if you want to connect with me, I have restructured my website just a tinge on NicoleEaton.com. You can book a session with me. It is now called Intuitive Therapy, which was recently formerly known as Soul Therapy. I just felt like Intuitive Therapy just put a clear picture on it. I am a trained mental health professional. Sometimes with the intuitives, I realize that I can get bunched up in life coach and stuff, but I have extensive training in mental health. I am a mental health counselor. I have a master's in specifically mental health. But I'm also an intuitive, and I wanted to really account for not just rehashing the past, but how are we going to honor it, move through it, and build a future you're friggin' stoked about. Build power within you and access power within you that you're ecstatic about. So I have that on my website along with some trainings. I have the comeback course and the cash money crash course, which is a whole thing devoted to manifestation of money and unlocking your money blocks. I'm so excited to work with you guys this year. And if there's anything you want to hear about, make sure you DM me, follow me on Instagram, NicoleEaton.xo, and we'll connect. Um, and as always, it's appreciated if you leave a review, share with a friend, or post this on your story and tag me in it. Always appreciated. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicoleEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicoleEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.